On September 1st, one of the biggest jobs in technology changes hands. Tim Cook is stepping down as Apple's CEO. But the person replacing him is not the executive most people recognize from an iPhone launch. He is not an outsider hired to shake the place up. And he is not Apple's most famous software boss. His name is John Ternus. He is a mechanical engineer who has spent 25 years inside Apple, mostly building the physical products that sit on your desk, wrist, and in your pocket. Which creates a strange question. At the exact moment every technology company is racing toward artificial intelligence, why has Apple handed the keys to a hardware guy? The answer tells us far more than Ternus's resume. It tells us what Apple believes its real problem is, and what it wants to become after Tim Cook. Cook is not leaving behind a broken company. Apple says its annual revenue grew from $108 billion in 2011 to more than $416 billion in 2025. Its market value rose from roughly $350 billion to around $4 trillion. And this July, Apple reported its strongest June quarter ever. That sounds like the easiest handover in the world. It may be the opposite. When a machine this large works, every bold new idea also looks like a new way to break it. Ternus must protect hundreds of millions of customers, a giant supply chain, and one of the world's most valuable brands, while proving Apple can still surprise people. In other words, do not drop the crown, but please invent the future while carrying it. No pressure, John. Ternus joined Apple's product design team in 2001. That was before the iPhone, before the Apple Watch, and before AirPods became the world's most expensive way to discover that one earbud has vanished into a sofa. He rose through hardware engineering and joined Apple's executive team in 2021. Today, his group is responsible for the engineering behind practically every major Apple device: iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, AirPods, and Vision Pro. That does not mean he personally invented all of them. It means his job was to turn ambitious designs into objects that could survive heat, drops, batteries, factories, deadlines, and actual human beings. That distinction matters. Apple is full of brilliant specialists. The difficult part is getting thousands of them to deliver one product that feels obvious when you open the box. Ternus's fingerprints are spread across Apple's modern hardware era. His teams worked on iPad and AirPods, generations of iPhone and Apple Watch, and the Mac's transition to Apple Silicon. More recently, Ternus became the public face of MacBook Neo, Apple's attempt to make the Mac affordable to a much larger audience. That launch is a useful clue. The job was not simply to make another beautiful laptop. It was to take the things people associate with a Mac, battery life, build quality, quiet performance, and hit a much lower price without making the result feel cheap. That is the sort of problem Apple's next CEO will face everywhere. Keep the magic, remove the barriers, and make a complicated compromise invisible to the customer. Here is the twist. Inside Apple, hardware guy may be the wrong label. Apple is organized around functions. Hardware experts lead hardware. Software experts lead software. Operations experts run operations. These groups are meant to argue, collaborate, and eventually make one decision together. The CEO does not need to be the best programmer, industrial designer, or chip engineer in the room. The CEO needs enough product judgment to make those rooms behave like one company. That is why Ternus is revealing. He has worked across nearly every product category, but his public style is not the grand performance of a founder. It is calm, precise, and deeply inside Apple's existing culture. Apple did not choose a wrecking ball. It chose a bridge. But a bridge still has to lead somewhere. Apple's immediate challenge is not producing another faster chip or shaving another millimeter from a device. It is making its intelligence feel genuinely useful. In June, Apple introduced Siri AI, promising a more conversational assistant that can understand what is on your screen and help across apps. Some features begin in beta later this year, with limits in major regions including parts of Europe and China. The announcement matters. The delivery matters more. Ternus inherits a company where Craig Federighi leads software and core AI, Sabi Khan runs operations, and specialist teams control their own domains. His job is to make all of that disappear into a product a normal person can use without reading a keynote slide. If Apple's AI remains a list of features, the company will look late. If it becomes a private, reliable layer across the phone, watch, Mac, glasses, or whatever comes next, Apple's patience may suddenly look deliberate. That is the bet. And then there is one more complication. Tim Cook is stepping down as CEO, but he is not leaving Apple. He becomes executive chairman, supporting parts of the business and continuing some work with policymakers. There is a historical echo here. In 2011, Steve Jobs moved to chairman when Cook became CEO. But this is not the same story, and guessing about private power struggles would be cheap. What we can say is simpler. Cook's presence lowers the risk of the handover. It also means Ternus must establish his own direction while the architect of Apple's last 15 years is still in the building. The smoothest transition may also be the hardest one to make feel new. So why did Apple choose John Ternus? Not because hardware matters more than AI. Because Apple believes AI only matters when hardware, software, chips, design, privacy, and services become one experience. Ternus has spent his career making those pieces meet in a physical product. Now he has to do it for the entire company. We will not judge him by his first keynote, his first black shirt, or how many times he says incredible. The real test is easier to understand. Under John Ternus, does Apple protect the machine Tim Cook built, or does it use that machine to make something people did not know they wanted? On September 1st, the quiet engineer gets the keys. Then we find out whether he knows where to drive.